Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cricket Corner podcast with me, Vatsal Vora. As for one last time on this platform, we are going to talk about the 2023 Ashes. There is so much to talk about. We are not only going to review the fifth and final test match at the Oval, we are also going to review the Ashes as a whole. So sit back and relax because this could be a long one. I don't have a script in general, I have some bullet points that I want to cover. So we'll get through those and see what the time is at the end. Let's start by talking about the fifth and final test match at the Oval. Well, I was there on day 5, sitting in the JM Finns stand and witnessing the greatness of the legendary Stuart Broad. Well, I can tell the future generations that I was there when Stuart Broad was bowling for the final time in his professional career and when he took those last 2 wickets of Todd Murphy and Alex Carey to win England the test match and level the series 2 apiece. Well, it was just mesmerizing to see. And when you talk about the final test match at Oval, you have to talk about Stuart Broad. I think it was at the end of day 3 where he announced that he was retiring from professional cricket at the end of the fifth test match at the Oval. So the fourth day and the fifth day were just dedicated to him. He got a standing ovation from the Australians while on at the beginning of day 4 when he was coming out to bat with his good mate Jimmy Anderson when England had just 1 wicket remaining in their second innings. And the last ball he faced as a professional batsman, he hit it for a 6. He pulled it in front of square. I can't remember who the bowler was, but yeah, his final ball as a professional batsman was a 6, and his final delivery as a professional fast bowler in international cricket, he got the wicket of Alex Carey to win England the test match. Yes, Stuart Broad has had an incredible career with England, but let's funnel it down to the fifth day of the fifth and final test match of the 2023 Ashes series for a minute. Let's do that. England needed all 10 wickets on the final day because there was rain on at the end of day 4, and Australia were 135 for no loss with David Warner and Usman Khawaja both getting runs of above 50. They're both above the half century mark at that point in time, and it looked like they still needed like 250 odd runs to win, but it felt like the game was in Australia's grasp. But then Chris Woakes gets early wickets, Moeen Ali gets a few wickets somewhere in the middle, and and the game then kind of went down to the wire with England needing 2 wickets to win, Australia needing 50 odd runs to win. And then you saw a partnership develop between Alex Carey and Todd Murphy. Don't get me wrong, Todd Murphy has been exceptional with the bat. He scored some 30 odd runs in the first inning, so he's no slouch with the bat as well. He can hang around, and it showed the same thing. He was flicking balls for fours, he was blocking deliveries like a proper test match batsman. So England needed something special, and that something special was provided by none other than Stuart Broad, once again flipping those bails like he did in the first innings to get the wicket of Marnus Labuschagne. And it was just magnificent to see. It is down to Stuart Broad to get those wickets, yes, but someone who will be the unsung hero of not only this Ashes but the 2019 Ashes as well is the Sky Sports commentator Nasser Hussain. Nasser Hussain and his commentary are iconic when it comes to the Ashes. We all remember those wonderful lines which he said whilst on air when Ben Stokes hit those winning runs at Headingley back in 2019. It goes along the lines of cut away for 4, what an innings, what a player. Take a bow, Ben Stokes. The Ashes are well and truly alive because of one cricketer, and that cricketer is Benjamin Stokes. Those were one of Nasser Hussain's best pieces of commentary, but I think he might have surpassed that by what he said when he was on air when Stuart Broad got the wicket of Todd Murphy. He said something along the lines of, well, he's done it, outswinger past the edge, outswinger past the edge, outswinger finds the edge. Those were the words which Nasser Hussain said whilst commentating on the wicket Stuart Broad took of, I think it was Todd Murphy. Yes, it was Todd Murphy. That was the 9th wicket And I think Stuart Broad later revealed that had he not taken that wicket off Todd Murphy on the final ball of that over, that was his last ball in international cricket because Stokes, the captain Ben Stokes, had already told Stuart Broad that he is going to bring in, I think he was going to bring in Mark Wood from the pavilion end, because Mark Wood had just bowled 9 overs in that innings and he was kind of fresh and he needed some extra pace to get Todd Murphy or Alex Carey. So Stuart Broad just decided to charge in, bowl the best bowl he can possibly bowl, and he, unfortunately for him, he got the wicket, which allowed him to get another over from Ben Stokes from that pavilion end, and once again coming round the wicket to Alex Carey, got that final wicket which secured Ashes. Not only secured the Ashes, secured the victory for England, levelling the Ashes 2 apiece. And it was just brilliant ending, theatre ending if you personally ask me. And take a bow, Stuart Broad, you deserved every bit of it. And the crowd was just magnificent. Whenever he came in to bowl, the crowd was just behind him. I think the crowd really gives Stuart Broad the energy to bowl some beauties. I think he was channeling the crowd at the Edgbaston Test, the first Test match. He was playing along with the Holly stand, and I think he didn't do that at the Oval, but the crowd was thoroughly behind him. Whenever he was going in on his run up to bowl the delivery, the crowd were just cheering him along. And I think Stuart Broad himself has mentioned that the crowd gives him the energy, and the Oval crowd was kind of responsible. I would personally like to believe, since I was there, that the Oval crowd were responsible for him taking those couple of wickets. But yeah, incredible end to an incredible career. And I think, yes, in the end it was just 2-2 in the end in the Ashes, and Australia have retained the Ashes. But the way England played, not only in the Headingley Test and the Old Trafford Test and the Oval Test, I think they deserved not at least a draw, if not a win, in my opinion. And Stuart Broad made sure that they would end the Ashes series on a high heading into the limited overs season. But yes, Stuart Broad, the more you talk about him, the more you realize that how big of a legend he is as far as English cricket is concerned. Here's his stats for his wonderful Test career, which he just concluded at the Oval a couple of days back. 167 Test matches, 604 wickets, his best being 8 for 15 in that wonderful spell he bowled against Australia at Trent Bridge, his home ground Trent Bridge, don't forget, in 2015. He was also a part of the England side which won the T20 World Cup in 2010, if I am not wrong. And he's had decent career numbers when it comes to ODI cricket as well. 178 wickets in one-day internationals, 5 for 53 being his best, 65 wickets in T20 international cricket as well. Yes, he will be remembered for the bowler being the one who Yuvraj Singh targeted when he scored those 6 sixes at Durban back in 2007 ICC World T20. But he has come long way from that, and I don't think it's right to remember him just for that purpose, because he has done so much for international cricket, so much for English cricket in general as well, that he deserves to be right up there in one of the greatest fast bowlers to play this wonderful game of cricket. There are just so many memories for which Stuart Broad will be fondly remembered. I already mentioned the 8 for 15 against the Australians in 2015. There's obviously the Test 169 at Lords. There's the, the hat-trick against my beloved Indian side where he got MS Dhoni and Harbhajan Singh, if I'm not wrong, and the third batsman eludes the name. But yeah, so many good memories from Stuart Broad. I think one of the Formula 1 commentators mentioned when a driver was retiring that you should leave the sport before the sport with which you are competing leaves you. And I think it completely holds true as far as Stuart Broad is concerned. The way in which he was bowling, he has got so much left in his tank. Not that I would say he can play for another 4 or 5 years and well into his 40s like James Anderson is doing. But the way in which he bowled, the swing, the control, even a few instances with the bat, it felt like there's a lot left in him in the tank. He could have easily played the next summer and the test series against Sri Lanka at home, but he decided to call it quit when he was on top of his game. And that is what still holds true, that the cricket within Stuart Broad has not left him. It's Stuart Broad who has decided to leave cricket behind, and it's the most honorable thing a sportsman can do as far as his career is concerned. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how Stuart Broad's career has been throughout the last 17-18 years since making his debut all the way back in 2006-2007. And I'm sure the cricketing brain inside Stuart Broad is not going to leave anytime soon. He wants to talk cricket. I know he does punditry for Sky Sports for the 100, so we are going to see him pop around here and there, and maybe in the future he'll be a full-time Sky Sports employee when it comes to cricket commentating, and join the likes of Nasir Hussain and Michael Atherton. So yeah, for one last time, thank you, Stuart Broad. It was an honor seeing you from the Oval in front of me, and I'm going to cherish those memories for a really long period of time, that's for sure. So yeah, that was the Stuart Broad appreciation part of this podcast, and a look back at the fifth and final test match at the Oval. I think at the end, England recorded a 49-run victory over the Australians to level the series 2-2. Yes, Australia have retained the Ashes and no one is going to take that away from them, but I personally feel like England played the better cricket if you look at the Ashes as a whole. Yes, they lost the first two test matches, but they won at Headingley. They could have easily won at Old Trafford, judging by how Australians were struggling on that occasion, and they won at the Oval. So had the weather not intervened, I personally feel like England and Bazball would have triumphed over the mighty Australians. But well, hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And I think Ben Stokes himself said hindsight is a wonderful thing. In the end, the history books and the record books are going to say that this series ended in a 2-all draw, and Australia retained the Ashes and took the urn back to the Melbourne shores. But I want to credit Australia as well. Yes, I feel like England were the better side, but credit to the Australians. They had a wonderful English summer. Personally, they won the World Test Championship final against India, and they carried that momentum into the Ashes, winning the first two test matches. The Headingley test match could have gone either way, let's be honest. They could have wrapped up the Ashes at Headingley, but unfortunately for them that wasn't the case, and England were just monumental, and they played brilliant cricket to level the series 2 apiece. I'm personally a huge fan of how this Ashes went, and if you look back at it, I think fond memories is what you all will get. Each and every test match had some or the other moment for which the test match deserves to be remembered. Like let's go in a chronological order here. The Edgbaston test, the Holly stand, the Root century, and then the Stokes declaration, Pat Cummins and Nathan Lyon's brilliant partnership to seal a narrow victory. That's what Edgbaston test will be remembered for. So many things happened at the Lord's Test match, which was the second one. There was the oil protest, the Bairstow stumping, the Alex Carey controversy, wonderful innings from Ben Stokes on day 5. And then you go into the Headingley Test match, the third Test match. What do you remember from that one? The wonderful fiery spell from Mark Wood, Chris Vokes' innings, which sealed the victory towards the end. The fourth test match at Old Trafford, yes, it was rained off, but it would always be remembered as the test match and the coming of Zach Crawley. What a brilliant knock that was. 189 of, I think, 183 or 182 deliveries. Absolutely smashing the ball all around the ground. I think Michael Vaughan compared him with Virendra Sehwag. That's a bit far-fetched if you personally ask me, but I think the 189 runs which Zach Crawley scored was probably the innings of the Ashes. Well, I didn't talk about it, but in the third Test match at Headingley, even Mitchell Marsh came away with a century, and the fifth Test match, obviously at the Oval, will always be remembered and cherished for being the last time we saw Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson play together, as Stuart Broad has retired from the game of cricket. There were so many good performances from both the sides. The man of the series, obviously, where in England they have two man of the series, one from each side. The one from the Australian side went to Mitchell Starc. I think he ended the Ashes with the most wickets in the end. I think he got 23 wickets from 7 innings at an average of 27, was just exceptional with the ball. The England side of the things went to Chris Woakes. Yes, he played just three Test matches, but England just found another gear, found another groove when they included Chris Woakes and Mark Wood in the side. Chris Woakes ending with 19 wickets from 6 innings at an average of just 18.15. He was just magnificent with the ball. Stuart Broad ending the Ashes with 22 wickets. But then again, if you look back at things, this Ashes series reminds you of how good the Australian pace attack is. I think I already mentioned it or not. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I feel like Cummins, Hazelwood, and Starc, the trio, are just exceptional with the ball, and I think these Ashes were a reminder of that fact. Of the top 5 wicket takers in this Ashes series, 3 of them are Starc, Hazelwood, and Cummins, and 2 of them are Broad and Woakes. Shows how little impact spin has had in this series. Now, I'm not sure how much that has to do with Nathan Lyon's injury after the Lord's Test match, the second one. Todd Murphy kind of did his job, but I think this series was dominated by pace attack. As far as the batting is concerned, Usman Khawaja was just magnificent. 496 runs. I think he became one of the few or a batsman in a very long time to face 1,000 deliveries in an Ashes series. But then on the other hand, there was Zach Crawley. 480 runs of 9 innings. He played an inning short because England weren't able to bat at Old Trafford. So he played 9 innings at an average of 53.33. There were so many talks about the inclusion of Zach Crawley. There are people stating prior to the start of the Ashes that why have you dropped someone like Ben Foakes, who is good with the gloves? Yes, Ben Foakes' wicket-keeping was kind of missed during the early stages of the Ashes when Johnny Bairstow was looking dicey behind the stumps, but he eventually got going really well and took some amazing catches, one at Old Trafford, one at the Oval spring to mind straight away. But Zach Crawley, man, I think he's really like silences doubters altogether, and I feel like he has converted a lot of haters into fans in a way, because the way in which he's batted, and I think he said it in one of the interviews after the game that England side don't want him to be consistent, because when you try and find consistency, you can sometimes lose the innings of your life, like the 189 he scored against Australia in the 4th Test match at Old Trafford. But what Zach Crawley has done in this innings in particular is that he has not shied away from his style of play. He knows he's going to be aggressive. I think the Australians are aware of the fact that he's going to play aggressive cricket right from the get-go. That's why they spread the field as soon as he is arriving at the wicket. And he's not afraid to play his shots. Yes, he might find a few inside edges, a few edges over the slipcord and stuff like that, but that doesn't bog him down at all. And that's the confidence in Zach Crawley which we have not seen over the past few years, and which we have seeing it for the first time. He scored 480 runs at a really good strike rate. I think he played at like 80, 85, 88 or something like that. And not only was he good with the bat, which he certainly was, he has become an excellent slip catcher as well. I think Zach Crawley probably caught the best from either of the sides, if you personally ask me. I think England have not only found their long-term opener in the form of Zach Crawley and a partner in Ben Duckett, they also found a reliable slip taker, slip catcher in a way at second slip in Zach Crawley. And I think this Ashes will fondly be remembered not only for Stuart Broad, Chris Wokes, Mitchell Stark, but also for Zach Crawley, and that's saying something as far as he is concerned. Wonderful, wonderful innings. Yeah, here is he played at a striker of 88.72, which is just phenomenal as far as a test series is concerned, and a test series which had 5 test matches in it. So yeah, credit to Zach Crawley as well. Some other notable performances which I personally will remember is Steve Smith. You cannot talk about Ashes and not talk about Steve Smith. Another well-made century at Lord's. Travis Head looked good as well. David Warner had a few decent performances here and there. Usman Khwaja did have 100 at Edgbaston, if I'm not wrong. Joe Root had 100 at Edgbaston as well. There's so many good moments to remember. As I already mentioned, Mitchell Marsh had 100 at Headingley as well. On the downside, however, it was a series to forget for a couple of players, but notably for James Anderson. He looked out of his depth. I'm not going to say he bowled poorly, because on so many notable instances, he beat the bat. He was so close to the stumps. He beat the outside edge. He was able to swing the ball on a few instances here and there. It was unfortunate that he ended the series with just 5 wickets, but he still has the hunger to perform, and that's what I am really proud to see in a man who has turned 41 just last week, and he still has the hunger and the appetite to go out there and perform for England and get over the line, get that 700th wicket. I think he's currently at 690 or something ridiculous. So I think James Anderson did have a series to forget, but I'm sure he's going to learn a lot heading into 2024. Someone from the Australian side who had a really torrid season was Scott Boland. I think he played 2 test matches, ended up with like 3 or 4 wickets. The experiment of playing Scott Boland did not work, and Australia might have figured out that playing Stark, Cummins and Hazelwood when they're completely fit and ready to go is the right way to do. Cameron Green, a lot was expected of him heading into this series, but unfortunately for him, Mitchell Stark has really found his place into that lower middle order, and it's going to be a competition between him and Cameron Green heading into future test series on who that all-rounder will be. Yes, Cameron Green does offer a little bit more with the ball, but Mitchell Marsh with the bat is just exceptional, and he was just magnificent. As far as my team of the tournament is concerned, I haven't given it much thought, to be honest, but let me just pull out that team and see where things lead up to. Like, the openers are obviously going to be Crawley and Usman Khwaja. I think at number 3 I'll pick Manas Labuschagne. He had a few iffy moments here and there, but I guess the century at Old Trafford, the 111 which he scored in the second innings, was really important, not only for the context of that particular game, but for Manas Labuschagne's form, because he hadn't been in good form as far as Test cricket is concerned. He had a really forgettable Border Gavaskar Trophy earlier in 2023. He had a forgettable time in the World Test Championship final as well. Heading into the Old Trafford Test, he had a few starts here and there, but he wasn't able to capitalize on those starts and make it into a good big score. But I think he kind of did that at Old Trafford, so I'll put him at number 3. England really lacked a proper number 3 ever since Ollie Pope was injured in the second test match. They tried Joe Root in there. They tried Moeen Ali. Moeen Ali, yes, he did get a 50 odd in the 4th test match, but apart from that, they didn't have a proper number 3 to consolidate that position. So that is the reason why I'm going to go with Manas Labuschagne. Joe Root will be at number 4 in my team of the tournament. 412 runs, a century in the first innings, healthy contributions in all the test matches, particularly at the Oval as well. And he can score at an alarming rate as well, so I'll pick him at number 4. Mitchell Marsh at 5 as an all-rounder. Ben Stokes at 6. Alex Carey will be my wicketkeeper at 7. And then I have to pick 4 bowlers, and since spin barely did anything in this series, I'll pick 4 quicks. I'll have to go with Mitchell Stark, the leading wicket taker. Chris Wokes is obviously there as well, Stuart Broad, and the final one would be Pat Cummins. So that would be my team of the tournament for the 2023 Ashes, and it goes as follows: Zach Crawley and Usman Khawaja, Labuschagne at 3, Joe Root at 4, Mitchell Marsh at 5, Ben Stokes at 6, Alex Carey at 7 as the wicketkeeper, Mitchell Starc, Chris Wokes, Stuart Broad and Pat Cummins being the bowlers to wrap things up. A special shout out should go to Moeen Ali for the services to this test squad. He was called up in a very haphazard and a quick manner into this test setup, coming out of retirement to replace the injured Jack Leach, and he did his part with the ball. He surely did his part with the bat as well, and then called it quits at the end of the Oval Test match, the fifth and final one. So yeah, a wonderful Ashes series, as I have mentioned so many times, and it was an honor, it was a privilege to cover it on the Cricket Corner podcast. It was an even bigger privilege to be there at the Oval on the JM Fin stand on day 5 and witness those amazing moments right in front of my eyes. Stuart Broad's bowling, Chris Wokes bowling, Moeen Ali, that failed drop catch of Ben Stokes. So many things happened on that day 5, and I think I'm going to cherish those moments for a really long period of time. But if you have stuck around till this point of the podcast, or you have been listening to any of the Ashes podcasts throughout this summer, then I sincerely thank you. I think the amount of love and affection I've been getting, not only on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but also on YouTube, has been really motivating for me personally. Yes, the channel has just 34 subscribers at the time of recording this podcast, but I feel like we can go places, and all I need to do is remain positive and remain, how shall I put it, consistent is the key, and we can grow as a community on this podcast. Special mention to my friend Joe, who was there at the Oval, who has given me with whom I've had a lot of healthy conversations in the over the course of this Ashes. Also my friends Nachiket, Yash, Twij, whom you have seen on this podcast when we talk about Indian cricket. They have been exceptional over the course of this Ashes as well. So shout out to them as well. You will see those three lot heading into the Asia Cup and the World Cup. But for the time being, this is the end of the English Test summer. They are going to play New Zealand in a limited overs series, I think both Test and one-dayers, which will be a healthy preparations for England heading into the World Cup. However, thank you for tuning in into this Stuart Broad special and an Ashes wrap-up podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to like, share and subscribe. If you are listening this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're giving me those wonderful 5-star ratings. However, for the time being, this is me, Vatsal Vora, signing off from the Ashes. A lot more to come on this channel, so stay tuned. However, for the time being, ciao for now.